Alright, this is a UU and U battle against PlusBlink44. He leads with Persian as I lead with Golduck. I already know he's going to use Fake Out followed by Hypnosis, so I stay in to take it. I then switch to Altera to take the Hypnosis as it carries Natural Cure. Luckily he misses and U turns out into his Credulity right here as I lock myself into Outrage. Now even though I'm life orb, I only do about 40% damage, and that's before lefties. So I go for the second wave of Outrage, and he recovers right here and goes back up to around nearly 90% after his lefties game. I'm forced to switch out afterwards because of the confusion, so I go into Polytoad so I can get a Toxic off on it before he can start setting up on me here. Luckily for me, he decides to switch out into Slowking right here, but I miss with Toxic. So I go for the Hypnosis, but he goes for the Thunder Wave here, and I miss on Persian. I decide to switch into Altaria again as he hits me with another Fake Out, and I decide to stay in and go for the Draco Meteor as he U-turns out. He was probably assuming I was a physical set and switched into Sand Slash, and Draco Meteor takes out Sand Slash. I'm left with little HP here, and I figure I probably won't live another hit, so I just decide to stay in that spot as Persian comes in for the revenge kill. Now I go into Meganium since it's more of a physical set, and he puts me to sleep with his Hypnosis. I decide to switch out into Nidoking to take a U-turn, knowing it won't be very effective. Too bad I don't get the poison on it from Poison Point, and he switches into Magmortar here. I decide to stay in, thinking maybe I can take a hit if it doesn't carry Psychic, as I managed to live in HP Ice. And I go with Earth Power, and after Life Orb damage, it takes out the Magmortar. Now I'm down to 29 HP, and I know I won't live another hit, so I decide to stay in, and Persian Revenge kills me yet again. I go into Golduck here, and I go for the Hypnosis on it, but he decides to U-turn out, and he goes into Slowking. My Hypnosis misses again, and I gain some little lefties. I go for another Hypnosis, and I manage to hit this time. Here I probably should have switched out, but for some reason I kept setting up with Calm Minds. And knowing that Slowking is a special wall, I really should have switched, but yeah, I kept setting up. He wakes up on the third turn and gets a Thunder Wave off on me. And then he switches out and goes into his Persian. Luckily I managed to hit with another Hypnosis right here as I gain more HP. Now I set up another Calm Mind thinking he'll switch, but he decides to stay in. I decide not to get greedy here and go for a Surf. Luckily it wasn't sashed or anything, and I managed to take it out with one Surf after setting up 3 Calm Minds. Now right here he goes into Hitmonchan, and fearing the Thunder Punch, I switch into Meganium, and Meganium takes it rather well. Now here I'm thinking his Hitmonchan is probably scarfed, so he's probably locked himself into it, and I decide to burn a turn of sleep as he switches into Slowking. Fearing the Ice Beam, I decide to switch back out into Polytoad, who takes it a lot better than Meganium would. Now I decide to go for a Toxic right here, but I get Parahaxed and I don't even get a move off. Fearing another Thunder Punch, I switch back out into Meganium to take it, and he again takes it rather well even after the critical hit. I know he's going to be forced to switch, so I decide to burn another turn of sleep, and he goes back into Slowking. Now fearing the Ice Beam, I decide to switch right here into Polytoad, and after Leftovers gain, Ice Beam does nothing to Polytoad really. Now, knowing he's going to switch into Hitmonchan, I decide to go with either Hypnosis or Toxic, try to get the Parahax. I over-predicted him here, thinking I was going to switch into Meganium, so I decide to stay in and take it. I go for the Hypnosis, manage to get it off, but yet I miss again. So knowing he's going to switch back out, I go for the Toxic this time and manage to get it off on Slowking. Now he switches back out into Hitmonchan here, and I managed to get the Hypnosis off on it this time, and I'm hoping I can 2-hit KO it with Surf. As it goes for the first turn sleep, I manage to get the surf off not getting parahacks, and I do about 40%. I already know there's going to be a 3-hit KO, and so I go for surf the second time and take it down to about 10% of its health. I decide not to risk it and switch out the third turn, and lucky for me, he wakes up the third turn and goes for the Thunder Punch, and I switch into Meganium to take it really nicely. He switches out into Credilli, and I go for the Leech Seed as I wake up, and because of Credilli's grass type, it's ineffective. I go for the Aromatherapy right here to cure my Paralyze on Politoed as he hits me with a Rock Slide, and after the critical hit, it does pretty good amount of damage. I decide not to stay in for another Rock Slide and switch out into my Golduck here, trying to Calm Mind up as he hits me with a Toxic. Now, here he decides to switch out into Slowking, which was a good move, and knowing that his Slowking's already poisoned, I decide to try and outstall it, so I start setting up my Calm Minds right here. I really should have switched out, but I didn't want to get Thunder Wave by anything, as he does right here, so that move right there helped. Now, this turn I really should have switched out into something else, but I go for the Surf to try and hopefully do more damage than what I did there, as he hits me with an Ice Beam, but after the Calm Mind it doesn't really do much as Poison starts to wither me down and I can probably live 2 more hits. I set up another Calm Mind predicting he was going to slack off, when in reality I really should have switched here, and he recovers all his health back and I'm down to where I can live 1 more hit. I decide to go for another Surf, and it takes it down to almost half of its health, but he just slacks it off and recovers all his health back up. Now I recover some with lefties, but the Poison just decides to do a lot more damage and take me out, and Poison does about 35% to him right there. I go into Politoed because Slowking can't really hurt me, and I go for the Surf thinking he'll switch out and not saying more, and he goes into Credilli to take it. I go for the Toxic and I manage to get it off, and he manages to Toxic me as well. Now here I decide to go for the Ice Beam since it's super effective, but he goes into Slowking here to take it, which he does rather well, as Poison starts to do more damage to me on the second turn. Now for some reason I try and figure I can outstall his Slowking since it's on low health, but because Poison isn't doing much damage to him the first couple turns, he manages to slack it all off as Poison does a 3rd turn of damage to me. Now I keep trying to wither it down little by little with Surf, and he hits me with an Ice Beam, but it does no damage to me whatsoever after lefties, but Poison really starts to take a toll. I go for another Surf after he gets Poison damage here, and he's down to almost half his health, but he manages to slack it right off as Poison still isn't doing as much damage as it is to me. I take another turn of Poison right here, and I know I can live 1 more turn, and knowing he's gonna slack off, I decide to switch on to Meganium to take some more lefties gain and hopefully get a Leech Seed off if he doesn't switch, or get off an Energy Ball here. He stays in, and I decide to Aromatherapy to cure my Poison, and he hits me with an Ice Beam, but because I have a few special defense EVs in this, I managed to live it. I recover lefties and I'm up to 54 HP, and I go with the Energy Ball here thinking I'll take it out if he stays in, but he decides to switch into Credilli, but because of Credilli's Rock type, it does a pretty good amount of damage, enough so I can probably take it out in 2 hits. So I go for another Energy Ball right here, and for the first turn in this battle I get a critical hit and I manage to take out the Credilli. And now he goes into his Hitmonchan right here, and thinking I already won this match, I decide to stay in for the close combat as he takes down my Meganium. And now I go into my Zangish right here to revenge kill it, but he decides to switch out into Slowking here, knowing he's choiced, and I take Slowking out with the Shadow Claw. Now he goes back into his last Pokemon Hitmonchan, and I'm really hoping he doesn't carry Mach Punch, but unfortunately he does, and I found out this was a banded Hitmonchan, and it's of course going to take me out because of the 2x super effective, and I go into my last Pokemon Politoed as he takes it down. That was a good game. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe.